I challenge any religious person in this university to defend their delusions in public debate. Dr. Sarah Matthews stood at the podium of the Campus Atheist Society meeting, her voice filled with intellectual superiority. Religion is anti-science, anti-progress, and anti-human. Military chaplains are the worst of all, using mythology to justify organized murder. The packed Student Union Hall erupted in applause as Dr. Matthews, head of the philosophy department, laid down her challenge. I'll debate anyone who thinks they can defend the indefensible marriage of faith and warfare. But I warn you, I have 3 PhDs and have destroyed every religious argument ever presented. From the audience, a hand slowly raised. The students turned to see a middle-aged man in a simple jacket and collar. I accept your challenge, Professor. Dr. Matthews smirked. And you are? Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel David Kim, United States Army, 20 years of military service, also Ph.D. in theology from Harvard, Ph.D. in psychology from Stanford, and a master's in philosophy from Oxford. The room went silent. What Dr. Matthews didn't know was that she'd just challenged one of the military's most educated and experienced chaplains, a man who'd counseled soldiers through the horrors of war while holding advanced degrees from the world's most prestigious universities. Dr. Sarah Matthews had made her career at Berkeley over 15 years by demolishing religious arguments. Her 3 PhDs, philosophy, psychology, and sociology, made her a formidable opponent. The Atheist Society meeting was a weekly ritual. 200 students, graduate students, young faculty members, intellectual, elite wannabes. Tonight's topic, Dr. Matthews announced, eradicating religious delusions from public life. PowerPoint slide, military chaplains, enemies of reason. These individuals, Dr. Matthews clicked her remote, represent the apex of religious manipulation. They weaponize faith for state violence. Students took notes religiously. The irony was lost on them. I've debated cardinals, rabbis, imams, all defeated. Their arguments collapse under rational scrutiny. Dr. Matthews was confident, arrogant. She'd never encountered real opposition. The campus atheist movement was growing. Young intellectuals rejecting traditional faith, embracing scientific materialism. Dr. Matthews was their champion. So, Dr. Matthews surveyed her audience, I issue an open challenge. Any religious person, student, faculty, community member. Public debate, recorded, posted online. Topic, religion is incompatible with modern society. I'll take the affirmative. Any volunteer for the negative? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. No immediate volunteers. Come now, Dr. Matthews was taunting. Surely someone believes strongly enough to defend their faith. What about military chaplains? A graduate student asked. Perfect example. Dr. Matthews was energetic. Military chaplains prove religion's moral bankruptcy. They bless weapons designed to kill. They comfort soldiers after taking lives. They use spiritual authority to justify violence. If anyone represents religious failure, it's military chaplaincy. That's when the hand raised. Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel David Kim had been attending university events for months. It was part of a military-civilian outreach program. Tonight, curiosity had brought him to the Atheist Society meeting. Academic freedom meant listening to all perspectives. But Dr. Matthews' attack on military chaplaincy was personal. I accept your challenge, Kim repeated calmly. Dr. Matthews studied him, middle-aged, quiet demeanor, clerical collar. Local pastor? She asked condescendingly. Military chaplain. The crowd's interest was piqued. A real military chaplain volunteering? Perfect, Dr. Matthews was excited. When can we schedule this? At your convenience, Kim replied. Credentials? Dr. Matthews wanted to assess her opposition. 20 years Army service, 3 combat deployments, Ph.D. in theology from Harvard, Ph.D. in psychology from Stanford, Master's in philosophy from Oxford. Silence. Dr. Matthews's confidence wavered slightly. This wasn't what she'd expected. 1 week later, the university auditorium was packed. 500 students, faculty, community members. Topic, military chaplains, blessing. Violence or healing souls? Dr. Matthews taking the affirmative against chaplains. Chaplain Kim the negative. Defending chaplains. Media was present. Campus newspaper, local TV, religious publications. Dr. Matthews was confident. She'd spent the week researching Kim's background. Impressive credentials, but still a delusional believer. Kim's preparation was quiet. Prayer, meditation, consultation with fellow chaplains. This wasn't about winning a debate. It was about truth. Format: opening statements, 10 minutes each. Rebuttals, 5 minutes each. Cross-examination, 10 minutes each. Closing statements, 5 minutes each. Dr. Matthews opened aggressively. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we examine one of society's most dangerous contradictions: military chaplains. Dr. Matthews was confident, prepared. These individuals claim to serve the Prince of Peace while blessing instruments of war. They provide psychological cover for state violence. They make killing psychologically bearable. Evidence: every major war has featured chaplains blessing troops, weapons, missions. Slideshow: historical photos of chaplains with military units. Vietnam chaplains blessed napalm. Iraq chaplains comforted soldiers after civilian casualties. Afghanistan chaplains justified drone strikes. The audience was attentive. Strong opening. My opponent represents institutional cognitive dissonance, a trained killer who claims moral authority. How can someone who serves a death machine speak for a life-giving deity? Answer: they can't. Military chaplains are psychological manipulators exploiting human fear of mortality. Applause from atheist society members. Chaplain Kim approached the podium calmly. No slides, no notes. Dr. Matthews raises important questions. War and faith do seem contradictory. I've struggled with these questions for 20 years. In combat zones, in hospital wards, at funeral services. Different tone, personal, reflective. Dr. Matthews describes military chaplains as blessing violence. I've never blessed violence. I've blessed soldiers, young men and women facing impossible moral complexity. I've held dying 19-year-olds who asked, "Did I do right?" I've counseled Marines suffering moral injury after civilian casualties. The audience was shifting. This wasn't the expected theological argument. Dr. Matthews shows photos of chaplains with troops. Yes, because that's where suffering exists. Would she prefer chaplains abandon soldiers to face moral crises alone? Military chaplains don't create war. We minister to those caught in it. He was beginning to capture attention. Touching anecdotes, Dr. Matthews was dismissive, but irrelevant to the core issue. Chaplain Kim admits to struggling with contradictions. Perfect, an intelligent person recognizing cognitive dissonance. Solution: abandon faith. Embrace reason. The military needs psychologists, not priests. Science-based therapy, not superstitious rituals. Every moment spent in prayer is a moment not spent in rational problem-solving. Chaplain Kim's Ph.D. in psychology proves my point. He needed real education to supplement his religious training. Why maintain primitive spiritual practices when modern psychology exists? Confident recovery. Back to intellectual superiority. Military chaplains perpetuate learned helplessness. Soldiers pray instead of taking action. Faith delays rational response to crisis. Strong counterattack. Dr. Matthews suggests replacing chaplains with psychologists. I respect psychology, hence my Stanford Ph.D. But let me share a specific example from Afghanistan, 2018. Sergeant Maria Rodriguez, 23, Marine sniper, ordered to take a shot preventing a suicide bomber from reaching a school. The audience paid absolute attention. Shot successful. Bomber neutralized. 40 children lived. But Sergeant Rodriguez was devastated. She'd killed a 16-year-old boy forced to carry the bomb. The military psychologist provided excellent therapy, trauma counseling, PTSD treatment. But Rodriguez asked a different question. Does God forgive me for killing a child to save children? Psychology addresses how to cope. Faith addresses why it matters. Sergeant Rodriguez needed both. Science for healing her mind, faith for healing her soul. The audience was silent. Real complexity was emerging. Chaplain Kim, Dr. Matthews, was aggressive. You claim faith provides meaning. But religious meaning is arbitrary, subjective. Your soul healing is a psychological placebo effect. Rodriguez's guilt was a rational response to taking a life. Faith-based comfort prevented proper psychological processing. Wouldn't an honest admission, killing is killing, serve her better than religious rationalization? Don't military chaplains essentially drug soldiers with false comfort? Strong attack. The audience watched Kim's response. Dr. Matthews, Kim was calm, you assume material reductionism. That consciousness is merely brain chemistry. But your own research in psychology acknowledges meaning-making as a fundamental human need. Viktor Frankl's logotherapy, meaning as central to psychological health. Rodriguez wasn't seeking false comfort. She was seeking a framework for understanding moral complexity. Faith provided a framework psychology couldn't. Transcendent purpose, moral accountability, possibility of redemption. Intellectual equality was emerging. Dr. Matthews, it was Kim's turn. Your atheist worldview. What meaning do you offer soldiers facing moral injury? If consciousness is a chemical reaction, if morality is social construction, if death is extinction, what comfort for Sergeant Rodriguez? Tell her that killing a child was just atoms rearranging. Her guilt is evolutionary misfiring. Her life has no ultimate significance. How is that compassionate? Dr. Matthews was defensive. Truth isn't always comfortable. Rational acceptance of reality? But is it true? Kim interrupted gently. Your materialism is a philosophical assumption, not scientific fact. Science describes how. Science cannot answer why, or should we? You critique faith for lack of evidence. But materialism, consciousness from matter, morality from evolution, meaning from accident, is equally faith-based. At least religious faith acknowledges mystery. Materialism pretends certainty about fundamentally uncertain questions. He was turning the tables intellectually. This isn't about religion versus science, Kim continued. Both chaplains and psychologists use the scientific method in counseling. This is about materialist philosophy versus theistic philosophy. Dr. Matthews assumes the universe is a meaningless accident. I suggest the universe has purpose, humans have dignity, actions have moral weight. Which assumption better serves Sergeant Rodriguez? Materialist view. Your guilt is biochemical. Your choice was a survival algorithm. Your life is a temporary chemical arrangement. Theistic view. Your guilt reflects moral conscience. Your choice required courage. Your life has eternal significance. Which framework offers genuine healing? The audience engagement was deepening. This was beyond simple science versus religion. Dr. Matthews' 3 PhDs are impressive, but do they address the human heart's deepest questions? Can sociology explain love? Can psychology explain justice? Can philosophy explain hope? Intellectual momentum was shifting. Chaplain Kim employs sophisticated rhetoric, Dr. Matthews was fighting back, but fundamentally argues for comforting lies over difficult truths. Yes, the materialist worldview is challenging. Reality often is. Better honest despair than false hope. Military chaplains offer psychological pacifiers to adult minds. Rodriguez should face reality. Killing has consequences. Guilt is appropriate. No cosmic forgiveness exists. Mature individuals accept responsibility without supernatural crutches. But the audience was sensing desperation. Cold comfort versus human dignity. Kim's eternal significance is wishful thinking. Death is extinction. Actions have temporary consequences. The universe will end in heat death. That's truth. Harsh, but true. Faith is an elaborate denial system. Strong words, but lacking warmth, hope, meaning. Dr. Matthews describes faith as an elaborate denial system. But what about materialist assumptions? You believe consciousness emerges from matter, no evidence. You believe morality evolves from self-interest, no proof. You believe meaning is human invention, unprovable. Your entire worldview rests on faith in materialism. The difference: religious faith acknowledges mystery, offers hope. Materialist faith denies mystery, offers despair. Dr. Matthews says, better honest despair than false hope. But how does she know hope is false? Has she died and returned? Has she accessed ultimate reality? Has she proven God's non-existence? Number: she simply chooses despair over hope. I choose hope over despair, not because I can prove God exists, but because hope serves human flourishing better than nihilism. Military chaplains offer hope to those facing humanity's worst experiences. Philosophical equality was established. Let me offer practical evidence. Kim shifted his approach. Military suicide rates. Units with active chaplain programs show 23% lower suicide rates. PTSD recovery. Veterans engaging in religious counseling show faster improvement than those with only secular therapy. Moral injury healing. Faith-based approaches prove more effective than psychology-only treatment. These aren't anecdotes. These are statistical outcomes. Dr. Matthews dismisses faith as harmful delusion. Evidence suggests faith promotes mental health, social cohesion, meaning-making. Even if you doubt God's existence, faith's psychological benefits are measurable. Military chaplains save lives through hope, meaning, community. Dr. Matthews' atheism. What lives does it save? What despair does it heal? What meaning does it provide? A practical challenge to pure intellectualism. Chaplain Kim cherry-picks studies supporting faith. Dr. Matthews was desperate. Correlation isn't causation. Maybe religious people have other support systems. Religion also causes wars, oppression, scientific denial. Military chaplains have been complicit in every American war crime. My Lai massacre? Chaplains were present. Abu Ghraib? Chaplains knew. Drone civilian casualties? Chaplains justify them. Individual chaplains may mean well, but the institution is corrupt. Better secular ethics than religious hypocrisy. But the audience was tired of abstractions. Kim's personal stories and practical evidence were more compelling. Chaplain Kim's sophisticated arguments can't erase religion's historical record. Crusades, Inquisition, religious wars, faith consistently breeds violence. A last attempt to shift back to intellectual superiority. Dr. Matthews correctly identifies religious failures, Kim acknowledged. Yes, religious people have committed atrocities, including military chaplains who failed their calling. But atheist regimes, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, also committed genocide. The problem isn't faith or atheism. The problem is human capacity for evil. Question: which system better constrains evil? Materialist might makes right or religious moral accountability? Dr. Matthews sees religion's failures. I see humanity's failures expressed through religion. But I also see religion's successes: hospitals, schools, human rights movements, abolition, civil rights. Military chaplains who oppose slavery, segregation, war crimes. Faith at its best calls us beyond self-interest to service, sacrifice, love. Sergeant Rodriguez found healing through faith because faith offered what psychology couldn't: redemption, purpose, hope. That's not delusion. That's grace. An emotional and intellectual conclusion. The Q&A session following the debate was revealing. Student questions showed Kim had won hearts, if not all minds. Chaplain Kim, how do you balance doubt with faith? Faith isn't the absence of doubt. Faith is commitment despite doubt. Dr. Matthews, if life has no meaning, why should we care about others? Because, well, social evolution, mutual benefit. Weak response. The audience noticed. Post-debate polls. 45% found Kim more convincing. 35% found Matthews more convincing. 20% undecided. Campus newspaper headline: Military chaplain holds his own against atheist professor. Religious students were energized. Atheist students were thoughtful. Dr. Matthews's reputation as an unbeatable debater was damaged. 6 months later, Kim was invited to speak at multiple universities. A Faith and Reason lecture series was developed. Academic interest in military chaplaincy was growing. Dr. Matthews published a paper, The Intellectual Challenge of Modern Chaplaincy. Not a complete conversion, but new respect for religious thought. Kim and Matthews developed a collegial relationship. I still think you're wrong, Matthews told Kim over coffee. But I respect your sophistication. You're not a typical believer. Most believers aren't typical either, Kim replied, just as most atheists aren't typical either. Maybe dialogue is better than debate. The university sponsored a Faith and Reason symposium. Kim and Matthews co-presented, Can Religious and Secular Worldviews Coexist? The answer, with mutual respect, intellectual honesty, and recognition of shared human concerns. 1 year later, Kim received a letter from Sergeant Rodriguez. Now a civilian, she was working with a veteran support organization. Chaplain, the debate video helped me understand my healing journey. Seeing you defend faith intellectually gave me permission to think deeply about my beliefs. I'm studying philosophy now, trying to understand how faith and reason work together. Thank you for showing that military chaplains can be both faithful and thoughtful. Kim smiled. Mission accomplished. Dr. Matthews also received a letter from her own student. Professor, watching you debate Chaplain Kim made me reconsider my assumptions about religious people. Maybe we atheists don't have a monopoly on intelligence. I'm still an atheist, but now I respect theistic arguments. Thank you for showing that debate can change minds without changing conclusions. Both professor and chaplain had learned. Intellectual humility serves truth better than intellectual arrogance.